Our next presenter is Troy DeGroot. Troy is the Director of Bluebeam Services at U Chapter 2. His session is titled, What is the Other 85%? Welcome, welcome Troy to the AugiCon main stage. Stage is yours.
Thank you, sir. Gonna share my screen. There we go. All right, so today we're going to talk about Bluebeam, the other 85%, because you don't know what you don't know. Let me get all my stuff set up here, all my different screens. Here we go. All right, so my name is Troy DeGroot. I'm the Bluebeam Professional Services Director at U Chapter 2, and I started my career in a high school internship doing structural steel detailing. It was fun because I actually spent 5 years in junior high and high school using CAD and then stepped back in time to start my career doing board drafting. Um, but loved it. I actually learned how to letter like 13 different people because the changes had to match theirs, but great experience. I helped them transition into AutoCAD a couple years in, and then I started working for a few different structural engineering firms here in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area. Um, After many, many years in CAD, helped them transition into BIM, which included about 70 employees across 7 offices. It encompassed structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, civil, and laser scanning at the time. And so it was kind of through that process of building workflows and people that I pivoted my career to teaching. And so I was teaching AutoCAD fundamentals, Revit structure, Revit architecture, and really out of frustration on how I had to learn Bluebeam, created my own courses and services, launched my business about 4.5 years ago, focused 100% on Bluebeam review. And I've been speaking at Bluebeam's XCon conference every year since 2016, I believe. I've got a couple classes submitted for this year. They're relabeling it Unbound this year. It's going to be in Washington, D.C. in at the end of September, start of October. So hopefully I'll be teaching there again. I'm also a subject matter expert writer for Bluebeam. So if you jump on their website, you'll see 16 articles that I've written for them about how the industry is using Bluebeam Review. So today, we're going to talk about how are other companies using Bluebeam Review, your competitors. We'll go over just some basic red lines. We'll talk about detailing, sketching, some document management, uh, revision, compare and overlay, RFIs, collecting field data, quantity takeoffs. And while we're talking about all of those, the functionality we're going to share, we've got a bullet list of a bunch of features that I'm going to show you guys as we go through. So I'm going to jump into the software. So I printed my last PowerPoint slide and turned it into a very, very basic digital dashboard. So what I'm going to be doing here is making sure that I check everything off the list. I've got hyperlinks set up to drawings that I want to show you these different things. So simple markups, calibrate and measure. We're going to jump out and do some of those. So got a drawing open here, just a structural drawing. Just real simple basics. We'll start there in the tools, tool markups. We'll start with the call out. So call out, you guys know how to use these. It's just you're going to point to something and then you're going to place your note wherever you want it to be and type in what you want that to say. Okay. I get pretty creative with mine. Oops, call out. Okay. And I always have my reuse markup tool turned on, just like all the CAD software we used. It keeps you in the command until you hit escape and cancel it. That button's down here on your status bar, reuse markup tool. So when I click off of it, it starts the next one, just like AutoCAD and those programs. So I'm gonna hit escape and cancel that. What I want to show you with the call out is a lot of people will do text boxes and then draw the arrow separately. and they can't move those notes because they'd have to move everything again and again. So I like to use the call out. If you want this note to point at several different areas of the document, you just right click, add a leader, and you can add as many as you want. Just right click, add a leader, and they're all connected. Like I said, a lot of people draw arrows in here. They get as close as they can to the elbow and they pray nothing moves. This way, they're all connected and they move together. Okay, another way to do that is just hold your shift key down on your keyboard and you can click on this little elbow here and it'll add a leader that way also. And then how you get rid of them is hold your shift key down again and click on the tip of the arrows you want to get rid of. So a little tip on that one. Cruising down, I'm going to show you the highlighter. The highlighter is actually a lot more than you would think. When you're in the open space like this, it looks like the tip of a highlighter, and you can come in here and draw your big yellow worms. If you hold your shift key on this one, you can draw straight horizontal and vertical lines, which can help you highlight over things. What you're going to find when you use your highlighter is that when you try to highlight something, when you get close to text, it'll grab the text. And you'll notice as you drag it over, it highlights absolutely everything except the one you were actually trying to highlight. So it's going to happen. Just go ahead and undo that, pretend it didn't happen. And the way you're going to do that is to go back to that highlight tool. When it tries to select that text, you're actually going to hold your control key down and it'll turn it into a freehand highlighter again. So I hold my control key and my shift key down so I can highlight over that text with a nice straight line. Okay, I'm going to try this again with selecting the text because I want to show you there's two different results that we get doing it that way. So this one we drew the highlight over top of the text. This one we selected the text. If I look at my markups list down below where it's recording everything that I do with my markups and measurements, if I click on this one here in the list, and I need to turn on my comments here. Thought I had it on. There it is. Okay, so I've got my comments on. When I select that one, you'll see that there's nothing in the comments. But if I select the one where I actually selected the text, it copies that text into the markups list down here. And why would that be important? Because the markups list is searchable. I can come up here and type in whatever I'm looking for. Let's say W14 by 22. There's going to be a whole bunch of them. Let's not search for that. Let's search for the C equals. And as I started typing, it narrowed down the search to only the one that contained that. So in a use case, maybe you're in a code book or a spec book or something like that, and you're highlighting all the important headers on the comments that you or the paragraphs that you need to read and things like that. If you're highlighting those, essentially you're creating flags or tags that you can then search for that soils report or whatever you're looking for. It'll pop up. You can click on that markup and it'll bring you directly to that spot in the document. So great functionality there. It's not just a highlighter, it actually does quite a bit. So wanted to show that one. Mostly because you'll see it blow up and everything highlight, and that's how you fix it. So markups, some other ones. One of the ones that I get a good reaction on is the arc tool. So when everybody comes in and draws an arc, they pick a start point and they drag it out and they get this very strange half or quarter oval, which is fantastic if you're drawing cars from the 40s, but otherwise probably never going to use it. The secret with this one is to go back in here, select the arc, and if you hold your shift key and start, you'll get a quarter circle. So that's a little bit better. Hold your shift key, you get a quarter circle. But the one we're all looking for, if you hold your alt key down, you can pick a start point, a midpoint, and draw that 3-point arc that we all expected. Okay. Hold down your Alt key, pick a start point, midpoint, end point. So I like to show that one. Let's see a couple more. The polyline is another one. There's lots of tips and tricks with this one, actually. The polyline is just a continuous line with different points. So you're going to pick, pick, pick. If at any point you don't like the path you're headed down in life, you just hit backspace on your keyboard. You don't have to delete it and start over, just back up and then continue again. If you hold your shift key during this one, it will draw on the 45s. And again, double click when you're done. Now, after you've drawn this and you select it, you get grips on all the corners and you can move those. A lot of us know that from AutoCAD and things like that. If you hold the shift key down, you can add a grip anywhere on a line segment. So you can adjust that, or hold your shift key down and click on the grip to remove it. And then the last one, if you right click on any line segment, you can convert it to an arc, and it'll give you some additional grips here to adjust what that arc looks like. So lots of things that you can do with that one as well. Polygon is the same thing. It's just a closed shape. All the same tips and tricks with that one. Probably my favorite markup tool is the Cloud Plus, because I can click and draw a rectangle, cloud, or pick and draw whatever shape I want. Double click when I'm done, and then it gives me a chance to put my note off to the side somewhere. So I prefer the Cloud Plus over the Cloud. The plus means it's better. And that just gives me a note so I can tell you why I have a cloud. And it always stays attached no matter where you move that. So that's one of my favorites there. All these markups are highly customizable. If you go over to your properties over here, you can start to look at, do I want this to be blue? Maybe I want a blue color inside of it. I can adjust all of that and get it to look exactly how I want. So a lot of times when we're working in Bluebeam, we're creating a visual language with different colors for different people and things like that. So lots of different customization you can do. So that's just some basics that I wanted to show you for markups. When it gets into sketching and detailing and stuff like that, you can use the sketch tools, the markups that we just talked about. Or there's also the sketch to scale tools where you can draw things to scale. So you pick on your rectangle, and as you drag this out, you can tell it how far you want it to go. Hit your tab to the next one, and then hit enter when you're done. So you can actually draw things to scale in Bluebeam as well. Once you get things drawn out, you can also create groups and things like that. So if it's something you're drawing all the time, so maybe I've got a Z strip for my facade or something like that, I can draw these components and create a group and just save it in my tool chest. So I can, this is a detail I do all the time, I just add it to my tool chest so it's ready and already done. Another one I have up here is a steel connection. So I can bring that into a group, I can ungroup it and start modifying all of these different components of it. So it can be a sketching tool as well. The next one I wanted to look at, let's see what we got over here. Let's go ahead and check that off. Let's calibrate and measure. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to calibrate. Typically, you pick the biggest dimension you can find. I'm just going to use one of these. Jump over to my measurement panel over here. And there's a preset button here where you can select any scale to match your title block or the view scale, whatever it says. So you just select 1/8 inch equals a foot, and all the dimensions you do after that would respect that scale. I teach all of my students every single time to never do that. because there's a little button called Scale to Fit that will fit your drawing on whatever size piece of paper you accidentally chose last time. So this 42 by 30 could end up on an 8.5 by 11, and the title block still says 1/8 inch equals a foot. So I do it manually. It's just as easy. I click on the calibrate button, come up here. It's going to tell us to select 2 points of a known dimension. I pick a dimension I know. Now, anytime I'm doing measurements or calibrating, again, I want to go down to the status bar and turn on my snap to content, and it will actually snap to the content of the PDF. I don't have to zoom in and try to find the middle of these pixels. I just snap directly to that line. I like to hold my shift key so I don't calibrate on a skewed line. Jump all the way over in a straight line over to here, snap and pick. And then it's telling us that this random distance on the piece of paper equals a foot. I'm going to update that to 30 foot 2 and hit apply. And now all the measurements I do after that will again respect that scale. So we got our 30 foot 2. Now I can go in here and get whatever measurements I need to this opening, the size of the opening. I can get accurate measurements of all of that stuff. So that's the calibrate and measure. All your tools up here. Poly length is just a poly line that it gives you the length of each segment and the total. You got areas, volumes, counts, all of that stuff in here as well. Another feature that came out relatively recent is multiply. So these spacings are pretty close as far as markups goes. So I'm going to grab this one here and right click and go to multiply. And I'm just going to type in 7 foot 9. And I'm going to go down with my multiply and just tell it how many. So I'm going to count these up until it gets down to there and hit OK. So I can very quickly, I don't have to pick all of these and draw those in. If it's a good spacing, you can just multiply those. Now, in an instance like this where we're just tracing over things, 1/2 inch may not matter for markups. We're not modeling in this case. So next one, go back to my list here. Check them things off here, and sets is the next one. So sets is a document management best practice where we extract all of our documents from maybe a single PDF that's 36 pages. We turn them all into individual pages, and then we load them into what Bluebeam calls a set. I prefer to call this a binder. It's more like a 3-ring binder where you snap it open, you put all your drawings in there, and what happens is when you have a revision, you can slip sheet under batch slip sheet. You can slide in the documents that changed, that were revised, and it will basically, you're snapping open that 3-ring binder, you're putting the new one on top of the old one and snapping it back closed. And so your entire team can open up this sets BEX file here. And when they click on a drawing, they only open one at a time. So if I look at this one and I go look at this other sheet, it will close that one and open this one. So that means because they're individual sheets, my whole team can be in this set, jumping to different drawings within the set, rather than typically you have a 36-page document and the first person that comes in the office owns it. Everybody else gets read only. They save their own version to their desktop, they mark it up, and a revision comes out, and we got a big mess. So sets allows us to all be in that same most recent. One person can be in charge of slip sheeting those revisions, and everybody else just has access to the latest drawings. So you can see down here, I did a slip sheet, and so the current one is on top. The old one is behind it, so I can go look at that as well. They're always just stacking up. Go look at the new one. And then once you have these in here, I can right click and go to compare documents and say, okay. And it's going to look at the drawings pixel by pixel and cloud everywhere where there's changes. So you can see here something was happening in here, maybe a beam size updated, different things. You can see clouds over here. So you know that that's where some changes are because clouding is sometimes a thing of the past these days. The other one you can do, so this one tells us where the changes are. The next one is going to be an overlay. Again, it puts those on top of each other like the old light tables. I'm going to say OK. And here you can actually see what changed. So if we look at the layers panel, you can see I can turn off the original and look at the revision. Rev 1, they're each on their own layer. Turn on the original. And so now I can look at this and know that the new one is green, the old one is red. I've got all these different beam sizes in here that changed, which beams were the dominant one, and so on. So it does a nice job of showing you what the changes are in this case. Now, a trick that I want to show you guys, if we go back to our compare with all of our clouds, if I select all of these, just draw a window around it, and I copy. If I go back to my overlay and I do a Control Shift V, it will paste all of those clouds on my overlay. So now I know where the changes are and I can see what the changes are with the overlay, all of those, both of those features on top of one another in one drawing. So just a little trick with that one, being able to combine the compare and the overlay. Start closing some of these. Let's go back here to our list. Sets, we did, compare, overlay. Next, we're going to talk about custom tools and custom columns. So custom tools in your tool chest. The tool chest itself is one of the most powerful things in Bluebeam. We can build custom tools to do just about anything. That in conjunction with the markups list is where you're really going to maximize your Bluebeam environment. So making tools that are very visual and marking things up, and then having the data down here in the markups list that you're collecting. And then you can export this, you can create summaries and all that type of stuff we'll talk about also. But in this case, what I did for a customer, they were a glazing company, so they do glass. I built custom estimating tools so they can come in and let's just do this one here. Grab their glass, type 1, just snap in here and draw in those different pieces of glass. Very quickly, they're getting the square footage of glass. It's labeling it. And then we can come down to our frames. So I've got an H frame here. I've got shear clips on each side of those horizontal mullions. I've got a sill can down here. And I'm just marking up all the different components of this window frame. Got my head can. And really, it just looks like I'm highlighting things. But actually down below, you're seeing it pull in all the lengths of everything. It's recording the type of glass. They can start answering some questions in here and having it calculate some different things. So what this particular customer did was we created all of these so they could mark them up. And then they export all of the data down here into a CSV. So if I go to my summary, CSV, I'm just going to let it do everything. But we built custom configurations because they had 6 different tabs on their Excel file where they were actually doing their estimate with all the formulas and everything. So we built this to collect the information, and then we extracted and did a copy paste. So here's all that information that I extracted from there. And then I would just go in and grab all of it, copy and paste it into their workbook. And it would come in right here. And all the right columns would load in the right places. And then all of their calculations would happen off to the sides over here and down below. So with any estimating, we can start with the end in mind, whether it's a estimating software or an existing spreadsheet or something like that. But we use those to design the markups list, and then we use that to design what the tools look like. So we can collect information and have it flow from Bluebeam through those different sources or different softwares that we want to get to. So wanted to show that example. We'll show a different export later. Another thing that I wanted to show here was spaces. Spaces are used to locate our markups. So in Revit, in the Bluebeam plugin, there's a button where you can actually have all your rooms in Revit convert to spaces in Bluebeam, so that when you place markups inside those rooms, they know where they live. So in this case, I'm going to do the same thing, but in an elevation view. So you'll notice that all of these window frames are in the fitness pavilion here. And down here in spaces, it tells me the fitness pavilion. Well, I'm going to take that a little further and really use these as assemblies. And I'm tricking spaces to tell me those assemblies. So I'll create a new space and I'm just going to trace around this one and call it type 17 and hit OK. And now when I look at my markups list at my spaces, if I sort it by space, it will tell me fitness pavilion type 17, and it shows me all the parts that I need for that assembly. So I'll bring this up a little bit. So there's 15 parts, glass, mullions, jams, clips, all of that we need for that specific assembly. So I would draw another space around each one of these, give it the name, and it would itemize those lists for me. And then in here too, the assembly quantity, I built it so that they could say how many there are, and then it would multiply all the quantities times that number. So lots and lots of cool stuff that you can do down here for different workflows. Estimating's a good example of that, how you get those to work together. Jumping in here, got to make sure I do all these. Grab my check mark. Okay, so talked about spaces. We did an export to Excel. We're gonna do that. We didn't do that yet. Let me go back. I'm gonna open up this drawing here. So on your drawings or on your documents, if you have a table or a schedule like this, you can export that. So if you go to File, Export, and come down here to Excel Workbook, I can do a full document or just a page region. So I'm going to do a page region, draw a box around this table, tell it where to save, and it'll open up Excel for me. And you'll see it's all formatted just like it came from, with different cells, rows, columns, and all that. So you can make any edits that you need and use it for those different purposes that way. Same thing for Word. If you go into File Export, you can export an entire document or page region of a Word document as well. So, or convert it to a Word document, I should say. So all those PDFs that you typically have to retype the entire thing, we don't have to do that. You just come in, export it from your PDF to a Word document. You can work with it there. And it comes in formatted exactly how you took it from, which is pretty cool. Okay. What do we got? Punch symbols. So I'm going to open up a punch example here. And in this case, I played the role of a general contractor and I created tools for all the different trades so that I could communicate things that they needed to fix on the job site. So, dark red is actually structural, yellow is electrical, blue is plumbing, orange is mechanical. So I placed those markups in here, little punch symbols, clouds with notes, and things like that. Um, One thing you can do in Bluebeam is add images to your markups. So here, rather than pasting a big image on the drawing over here and fitting like 6 of them on the entire sheet, you can right click, go to capture from file, and add whatever images that you've taken and saved. Or you can go from camera if you've got a Surface Pro or something out in the field. So once you do that, you get this little lens here indicating there's an image attached. When you click on that, it'll open up this flip book showing you that image. So here, obviously, we have a mechanical issue. Somebody used an RV air conditioner on this hotel. Another one here, we've got a skylight repair required. Some good flashing flashing work done there. But just having fun, I put in some good ones here. You can also attach 360-degree images. So this is one that was taken. I can navigate through here. These are always nice because you capture more information than you thought you needed. And sometimes you need that stuff. So 360-degree cameras, you can add that, attach that to your markups as well. So what I wanted to show with this one also is that we can put these on layers. If I go to my layers, um, I can have layer states. So if I want to look at just the electrical, I can switch that out and it will show me just the electrical. If I want to look at mechanical, it'll turn off everything but the mechanical. So a lot of functionality there, very, very similar to AutoCAD. And what I did here, along with layers, I also did legends for each of the disciplines. So it's recording live only the punch symbols that I've done. And I built those symbols to have basically a description, bolt is missing, and then the comments is where I provide a fix or how I want that fixed. On this one, I added a quantity so I knew exactly how many of these different products I need to bring, maybe what this would tell me what kind of equipment I need or tools, how many people, things like that. Um, so I made a descriptive legend in here for each one of those. And now I can work with those layers and also the markups list. If I come in here, I can filter my list to only show um, structural. We'll do that one. And it'll gray out all the other markups. I would then probably just come over here and change this to only show the structural. But now I can run a report of just the structural um, punch list and hand that to my structural contractor, right? So here, sort and filter. I want to do only the structural, and I'm going to say on my output, I want to append and hyperlink to the current PDF. This is a good one because it'll add it to this drawing file at the end. And there's some nice functionality when it does that. So here's my report. If I look at my thumbnails, you can see it was added to the drawing itself as other pages. It gives me all the information from the markups list. And this little symbol here is actually a hyperlink. So when I click on it, it will bring me to that spot in the drawing. So I can go through and look at my report, hand that off. And then at the end, there's a capture media summary where it brings your images with it. So in Bluebeam, when you have images, the PDF is like a container, and these images live in that container. So when you send the drawings, they go with it. You don't have to worry about that. and sending them separately, and this one belongs to that, and so on and so forth. You just attach those to the markups. When you send it to somebody that doesn't have Bluebeam, they won't see those little cameras and the attachments to the markups. So I would run the workaround is to run this report, have the capture media summary attached, and then they'd be able to download these images from here. So that's one way to get non-Bluebeam users all of those images as well. And it's actually a really nice report here. So a good use case there for that. Let's see. What do we got? Punch, capture. Let's talk about a revision symbol real quick and edit action. So I'm going to jump out here. For revisions, a lot of times I have a tool out here for or an RFI, something like that. I have a symbol up here that I'll just place that on my drawings. Right next to where it's at, I can double click and change that to whatever RFI it is. And then I can right click, go to edit action, and go and select wherever that RFI is. So I'm not going to dig through all my stuff here to find one, but you get the idea. You can attach, I'm going to attach a building code here and just pretend that's an RFI. So here you'll see the little lightning bolt. That means that there's a file attached to it. And when I click on that, it'll open up that file. So we're going to pretend this is an RFI. It opened up on my other screen. And so I keep it all organized that way so that on my drawings, I have kind of a dashboard of this is where all my RFIs are. Or similar, like I was saying, revisions. You might have this hyperlink to a revised drawing or something like that. And then I also have one that is the RFI answer. So I might place this back after I get a response, mark that one 15 as well, and then hyperlink to the response that I have. So I'm trying to keep everything in one place, kind of like your drawings turn into a dashboard. And when we're using sets that I talked about earlier, all these markups, when you slip sheet, they copy to the new version of that drawing. So you never lose anything on those back versions. So you would just keep collecting RFI after RFI on that one set of drawings. Okay. So that's the RFI and the revision symbol. Talked about that a little bit, the RFIs, edit action. And then the other one, I talked about the summary already. Doing good on time. The statuses. So when I was in production doing structural design, modeling, AutoCAD, all the architects, all you guys, you can build custom statuses. So it was all done on paper when I was doing it, which resulted in some very late nights. The engineers would get done with their markups at 3 o'clock and assume that's when I start my day. So I would start applying all those. And then as I applied those to CAD, I would scribble over it with yellow highlighter. And then they would back check it and scribble over it with a green highlighter. Well, we can mimic that in Bluebeam so that we can stay digital. Once you finish this markup, you can go into the status here, or right click on it, go to the status and mark that one completed. And it will change it yellow when you mark it completed. Let me turn on my statuses down here. There we go. Status. So now over here, it has a record of Troy DeGroot marked these complete today at 12:09. And we can't get rid of those. It's always in there. And now when the engineer goes and back checks this, they come in, change the status to accepted, it turns green, mimicking that green highlighter. So everything's green before we print a new drawing. If I go to this one, mark that one completed, and I didn't actually complete it correctly, they can come in here and mark it rejected, and I can have it turn pink or whatever to draw attention to that. And again, all of those status changes are recorded down here. We can't get rid of those. So in that process, if you start to see things constantly being rejected and redone, we've got a training opportunity, obviously. So it's nice to be able to record all those status changes and what's going on, not only so we get good drawings out, but so that we can really track our employees and how they're doing with their red lines and how efficient they are with those and understanding each other's communication. Sometimes it's not the designer, it's the way it was marked up or, you know, some hang up in the communication. So that is statuses. And we talked about the markup summary with the punch list. Same thing with all your markups for your red lines. If you were to run a summary of that, you'd get a list of all of those markups and the information in there and what the status is and things like that. So I'm going to check out the chat and see if there's any questions. I think I saw some as I was talking. Lots of them in here. Oh, those are from the past ones. Let's see. The shift key trick, Aaron. Yeah. So in Bluebeam, there's 3 keyboard buttons that will change how almost every tool works. And so I talked about the one with the shift key, how it helps you draw straight lines. Um, it helps with a lot of things actually, but the control key is another one. So if I want to make a copy of this note or the highlight or whatever the case might be, if I hold my control key down, I can just click and drag that copy wherever I want it. Hold your control key down, and they're all independent of each other. So I can come in here and modify whatever I need to in this one. Okay. So that's the shift and the control. And then I talked about the alt key also, where that helps you draw circles from the radius instead of corner to corner. Let me do one of those. So a lot of people know if you hold your shift key, it'll draw a circle instead of the oval that it gives us by default. But if you hold your alt key down, you can draw a circle from the radius, which sometimes is a lot easier. So some tricks there. So Control, Shift, and Alt will change how a lot of your tools in Bluebeam work, make them more efficient, more accurate for you. We'll need to look at sets instead of Bluebeam sessions for multiple users at a time. Yeah, definitely. Nancy, you can use sets in a collaboration with a bunch of people. It doesn't have to be in a session, but if multiple people want to be on the same sheet at the same time, then you would push it to a session and be able to have more than, up to 500 people marking up the same sheet at the same time, which can be really nice when needed. Can the layers come from AutoCAD when printing from AutoCAD? I have seen a lot of times the layers come through. I'm not positive what the settings are in CAD to make those push through to the PDFs. I see it a lot in civil drawings, um, but I'm not sure what that setting is in CAD. Good question, Tony. The PDF plotter driver needs to be configured to include layer information. Yeah, thanks, Scott. We use yellow as well for completed status, but picked a slightly darker shade. Yeah, my team complained about the yellow. Yeah, the yellow kind of disappears on that drawing. I would agree. Um, I typically pick a different yellow as well. If I go to my properties, I've got one saved down here that's a little more mustardy, if that's a word. And so you can see that a little better than the yellow. Awesome. That's it in the chat. Is there any in the, looks like there are in the Q&A. Let me see here.
Yeah, you have a few in the Q&A as well, Troy.
Awesome. Does it keep the previous sheet that you slipped over? Yes. When you do your slip sheet, just like this one, it stacks those up. So you can always page back to the previous one. They'll keep stacking up as you put those revisions in there, which is really nice to be able to see those on top of each other. Can you do the overlay instead of the compare? Yeah, you can do either one. Um, if you're asking, can I bring the overlay information onto the compare? We can't. The overlay is actually overlaying the two documents. There's no actual markups in that function, where with the compare, they're marking it up with actual clouds. So you can copy and paste those onto the overlay, assuming kind of reading between the lines with your question there. Can you control how the graphics that equal completed? Adam, I'm not sure what you mean by that. We can only change the color with the status change. We can't change a line style or anything like that. How can you undo a status if you misclick and set it to another by accident? Whenever it happens to us, we can't. And when we change it, it adds on a new status. Yes. So if you undo immediately, you can undo that. Otherwise, it sticks. You can't get rid of those. And it's a safeguard. Obviously, the status change is there for a reason, and we don't want to delete those statuses in a lot of situations. But I hear you. Sometimes there's accidents that happen, and they keep stacking up when you have to switch them back and forth. Okay. How do you know why to add a sheet to a session that has already started? Um, I think if you're asking about adding a sheet to a session, let's see if I can get in a session quick. If a session's already going, you can just go into the documents and click here to add more documents to that session. I hope that answers your question. We enjoy utilizing the compare feature, but our office uses color PDFs for their construction documents. Is there a way to quickly have Bluebeam convert our PDFs to maybe a grayscale? That is a fantastic question. Um, I'm not sure if there's a quick way to do that, to switch it to a grayscale. Um, yeah, that's a tricky one. When you use colored, the overlay would be difficult. Unless when you do the overlay, let's see, if I come back in here, you can edit the colors. So if possible, you might be able to select a color you're not using. So you just click on the color here and pick whatever you want. Also, if you can't see these colors, sometimes you want to switch it to something else. That might be one way to do it. And also with the overlay, I showed this in a revision scenario. I work with a lot of contractors that'll overlay a mechanical and a structural plan to see, a really rough clash detection run. Or I worked with a contractor that overlaid their temporary shoring plan with the foundation plan to make sure that, you know, that temporary wall was far enough away from the foundation to get equipment through and things like that. So it doesn't have to be a revision scenario. It can be just drawing coordination.